What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more J-drama score, and as I'm about to finish my watch-along of Hana Nochi Hare over on Patreon, there's 2 episodes left, and I recorded them in the same video, so there's 1 installment waiting to be posted. We're going to listen to the first track on the soundtrack here, and actually there's 3 versions of this. Now, it's translated on the soundtrack CD as Flower Then Sunny, and I think that is more or less the direct translation of Hana Nochi Hare. So it's essentially the theme track of the show overall. As I said, there's 3 versions. We're going to listen to the first version, which is the first track on the soundtrack, and it's listed as Flower Then Sunny Overture. There's also Flower Then Sunny Variation 1, In the Garden, for example. That's literally the name. And that one has a very Baroque classical music type of feel, so we'll definitely listen to that at some point. And then the final track on the CD is Flower Then Sunny Variation 2, Melancholy, which is a bit more melancholy than the other 2 versions, though I wouldn't say it's one of the more melancholy tracks on the soundtrack. There's a few others that have a sadder feel to me, so yes, all 3 versions are good, but I figure we'll start with the main one because you do hear it quite a lot in the show, and it's, I think, at least in the mind of one of the 4 composers, meaning, again, there's 4 composers that worked on this soundtrack. It is the musical expression of the emotional palette of the show. But yes, the overture version, as you might expect, it definitely has a bit of a classical sound, though there's also some other elements that really do just sound like a score piece, meaning not just classical, but classical instruments playing a piece for a movie or a show. And yes, ultimately it's by Yoshihisa Hirano, or Hirano Yoshihisa. I forget which way I listed it. For the most part, I've been listing Japanese composer names the way they're said in Japan, meaning surname first, then given name second. But there's a few exceptions, like when I've been going through Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross soundtrack tunes, I've been listing it as Yasunori Mitsuda, which is his given name first and his surname. So yeah, I've been a bit inconsistent in that regard, but it's Yoshihisa Hirano, and I think Hirano's the surname, so I should say Hirano Yoshihisa. Nevertheless, let's give it a listen. This is Flower Then Sunny Overture, the first track on the soundtrack to the 2018 show. beautiful. It is a multifaceted tune in the sense that there are parts of it which are very soft and intimate, but the large duration of it is big and grand, and in that big and grand sections it really does remind me of some of the music from Hana Yori Dango, which I imagine is deliberate. It's a different melody, but one of the main themes in Hana Yori Dango, it has a bit of a similar feel. It has a grand excitement or optimism within the melody or imbued in the melody, and I think that comes across here. It's also multifaceted in the way that we hear the main melodic stroke of this piece in the strings, in the oboe, in the brass, and then in the very end a flute. So we hear it go through different parts of the orchestra, if you will. And as I said, it feels like a classical piece, but with a bit of a soundtrack flavor. There's also some supporting elements that don't carry the main melody, but are definitely noticeable. There's a little bell chime, or maybe it's like chimes that are struck, but I think it's a bell. There's also a little like marching drum kind of flourish that's in the center, and then of course in the second half of the tune, or maybe the final third of the tune, it goes into a bit of a, for lack of a better word, synth rock type of sound, meaning we get like a full drum beat and it has more energy. But yes, I enjoy the evolution and chronology of the piece, and it is very much the essence of the feeling a lot of the show, emotions and excitement and, big things happening at a very important school, which I've talked about in multiple previous reactions for Hana Nochi Hare and Hana Yori Dango, about the school that both shows and stories take place at Toku High School, so I won't recapitulate that all here, but yes, I think it's very fitting for the show. Again, the two other versions are pretty different, even if the main melody is the same. I particularly like the Baroque classical style version, which is Variation 1, and what is it, In the Garden, for example? Yes, exactly. So it's Flower Then Sunny, Variation 1, In the Garden, for example. I'm especially amused by the for example part, so maybe I'll react to that one next, and I'll try to do that by the time I post the final installment, which, as I said, will be the last two episodes, which I imagine I'll be doing sometime within the next week. So yes, for those who've been following, big shout out to you. I'll put the link for my Patreon watch along of the show in the description for this reaction, just in case anyone seeing this has not been on board but is curious. And again, I would highly recommend the show in general. I mean, you don't have to watch it with me in the watch along, but of course I think it's fun. You get to sort of experience the show and hear some of my commentary, or maybe points of reference from other shows, or Hana Yori Dango, the predecessor show that you might not be familiar with. And I obviously enjoy hearing people's comments. Once again, shout out to both Michaela and Dawn for watching and commenting, and to any else who may be watching, I appreciate that too. So yes, as I said, the final installment of the watch along is coming. Let me know what you think of this piece. I will see you next time. Peace.